This is round two. Put more time on the clock, Chris. Put more time on. No,
Are you delegating this to me, Tristan, or are we collaborating? Right.
We need to cut his mic. Cut his mic.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurship podcast with X.T.C. I'm Xaulanda.
I'm Tristian.
And I'm Chris.
As an entrepreneur starting or growing your business, you may have a destination, but the journey getting there can be a trip. We want to be your travel companions and inject a dose of X.T.C as we explore real-life conversations about navigating the world of entrepreneurship in the U.S. and the Caribbean. Come take this trip with us.
Welcome back, Trippers, to another episode of the Entrepreneur's Trip with my co-hosts, the X,
Xaulanda,
the T,
Tristian,
and the C, Chris. And we're excited to have you back here. Last week we talked about whether or not to collaborate, and today we're talking about whether or not to delegate. And I know those terms can be sometimes confusing, sometimes not, depending on where you're coming from. I think Tristian and Xaulanda had some offline battles here going in, so I'm excited to referee this episode. And
I appreciate you refereeing this episode.
But first, let's get into seeing what we're drinking while we are on this trip today. Okay, so what do you all have in your glasses?
I'm not sure if I really want to share, because I had a pun that was going to be like, it's strong. I don't want to be like a Russian pun, but Russia is definitely strong-arming a lot of places right now, so I just don't want to do it. But it is vodka, so that was reference.
Well, I'm going to do a twofer. I still have my carbonated drink, but if you heard our last episode, we talked about enjoying 10% of the watermelon. Here's my watermelon.
I like it.
Oh, she's sickening. Who's delegating her the props?
I've got a little whiskey here, which more of a rum and watermelon person. I'd like to have some watermelon with some rum in it right now.
I would love to have some watermelon right now. It's pretty selfish of her, but I'm not going to say anything.
Well, if we were in the same place, you would have been able to partake, but we're not in the same place. So you'll just have to live vicariously through me.
Look, she's about to scoop another watermelon.
After this episode, I plan to enjoy watermelon rum with whatever's left of my carbonated drink here.
Could we
really good
kick people out of this? Welcome, guys, to the new episode of TC, Tristian and Chris. We're out here and we're going to talk about how we were just sipping while we were tripping, and we applaud Xaulanda for taking that trip without us, and now we're going to move on to unpacking. Is that what it is we do, Chris?
That is what we do.
Because TNC seems to have its own show, which means,
What do our guests feel about watermelons? All right, let's unpack this episode.
So this episode, we're talking about to delegate or not to delegate. And there was quite a robust debate between myself and the T. And since you're trying to kick me out, you and T can continue the conversation. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, does that see my way out?
How similar or different it was from to collaborate or not to collaborate, right? Mm-hmm. So when we talk about delegating, we're talking about entrusting a task or a responsibility to another person. Or is it to another company? Kind of like what we were talking about with collaborate, right? However, my position is this. If you're delegating a task to somebody, a lot of the times I'm working with clients who are trying to grow their capacity. And so they hold on to things, even though they know they should be delegating. You need to have that trusted person that once you delegate and you're clear on what your expectations and what the output is, you're able to release it, let them take care of it, and then have them report back. That's, I think, a little bit different than the collaboration with another company, even though they are very similar. So I know you want to jump in there, Tristan.
I do. And from that perspective, guys, I just want you guys to definitely take my side. In which, when we were talking about delegating, I was saying that you could delegate these tasks to other companies, in which Xaulanda is still calling collaborating, you know.
Mhm.
So for me, I work in production. So what ends up happening is that we're a bunch of smaller collaborators that work together on a larger assignment, which still makes it collaborating. However, you delegate the task of producing
Did he
or
just prove?
creating.
It sounds like he just proved my point. But go ahead. I'm just saying.
By definition, you're pretty close, but I'm just saying when you bring in your collaborator, you bring them in and delegate them an assignment to do. So what it is that we be so Chris is our perfect example because he's not going to take any sides, right? So we're collaborating with Chris on this production. However, he's delegated to technical direct the show.
Xaulanda, your take. Again, I'm refereeing. This is I'll add my 2 cents in a few.
I think, you can look at it from that perspective, right? But when we're looking at small businesses, we have to make a distinction between small businesses that collaborate with other small businesses or independent contractors versus small business that might be delegating tasks to their employees, which is a different,
You saw she did that. You see
yes,
how she
it's a
did that?
certification than a subcontractor or an independent contractor. So I'm sure we're going to need to bring in an expert on a future podcast. But the reason why I'm making that distinction is that as small business owners, sometimes we bring in independent contractors to delegate tasks to, which we can, but you can't treat them like employees, right? Because they
So,
are distinct entities or individuals that are functioning in a particular role,
so when we
but
bring in
not
this HR
behind
person,
salaries.
so when we bring in
I'm
this
sorry.
HR person, are they
Mhm.
collaborating with us or is it a delegated assignment that they're working on?
They will be collaborating with us because we're bringing in the company, not necessarily the individual. And we have not engaged in an employment contract with that individual. We're engaging in a conversation with a collaborative company.
I'm
All right,
probably
guys.
gonna
So what we're
prove
gonna do?
I'm probably gonna prove somebody's point in this, and I'm not sure whose yet. And again, this is just my 2 cents. So if I
You
again
got 5 minutes. Take your time.
listening to the two the two distinct viewpoints of what is collaboration and what is delegation. If I were to break it down in my mind, I would say that collaboration is done to help accomplish a project, an external
Mhm.
task, an external thing that you have, or a measurable milestone that you have to accomplish. So you might need more people to help with that, who are all acting as their own entities, coming together to help fill the gaps, in order to create a streamlined approach to fulfilling a project
Be
successfully.
careful, Chris. Be
Delegating,
careful, Chris.
and it's just my way of viewing it,
Mm-mm.
is how each of those players coming to the table to collaborate would make themselves or their companies the most efficient. So, how good of a collaborator are you based on your ability to delegate tasks within your organization to free your time and come to the table as a collaborator who can bring, as we said in the last episode, bring wood to the fire to build a stronger fire. So if you want to carry a whole bundle of wood, you have to maximize your time, your efficiency. So I need to delegate tasks as an entrepreneur, or as a company to my employees, in order to make the company and myself the best collaborator coming to the table to accomplish a task.
Xaulanda, it was at this moment.
Chris, and just to add, Tristan, before you say anything else, no, let me just add this, okay? By definition, the verb of delegate is to entrust a task or responsibility to another person, typically one who is less senior than oneself. In a collaboration, when it's companies, we're usually coming in on equal footing. We're just focusing, focusing on the portion
Damn you, Webster.
of the project, the portion of the project that is our area of expertise. So, for example, let's take this podcast. Using your example of Chris, you do you. You do you's expertise is in podcast production. So since that's his expertise, he takes the lead on that. We may delegate, but he takes the lead on that. No.
Tristan jumped on that.
He's not lesser than Precision Productions or the Shaskai Group. We're all on even footing.
And this is one of this is one of those exceptions to a rule. Oh, now you sipping? All right.
Because I'm waiting to hear what you got.
No. This is one of those small exceptions to a rule where I would agree that us as companies have equal footing in the door, more or less. Like we were saying, a lot of the times it's 60-40, 70-30. I don't want to say 80-20. So the footing is not technically equal. It's, it works collaboratively. And we just delegated that person to efficiently operate in their area of expertise.
The only way that I would even begin to agree with your concept of delegation is if we were in a prime contractor arrangement where a prime went after, say, a government contract and they have delegated certain responsibilities of that contract clearly outlined as the subcontractor. But most small businesses, when we bring in other businesses to work with us, we are collaborating. Usually we delegate.
Okay, so let's do this. I got 40 seconds. Let's do this real quick. In a previous episode, Chris said he went to collaborate with someone and then was delegated to shoot that segment. How did that work?
But he had the right to refuse. He had the right to refuse that delegation. He just chose not to because that was not within the scope of his work. Even though he was collaborating with that person.
Even though he was collaborating, it was delegated that at this point in time we'll take a detour. We're taking a detour. I'm delegating the detour.
Let's jump in, Tristan. I'll give you your time.
And welcome to the detour where everything is delegated to the other companies. And within this delegated detour, like I was saying, poor Chris was brought into the situation in which he thought he was collaborating, was hit with a detour, and was delegated with shooting whatever the assignment was, while the primary in the collaboration got to put their camera down.
You done?
I'm done.
Okay.
You know when a woman says you're done, you know it's done, right?
Based on that detour example, Chris, as the collaborator who did not have that in his scope of work had the right to refuse. However, if someone who's an entrepreneur, an owner, has employees that they are delegating tasks to, more times than not, that employee needs to execute it, particularly if it's within their job scope and responsibilities.
Not arguing with you on that point. I'm just saying, as collaborators, we bring people in and delegate our tasks to that collaborator.
I see it differently. I see it as we
Okay.
collaborate and
So
we
hold
allow
on.
people to take the lead on their area of expertise within the project. That is different than delegating.
Watch this. Chris, were you brought in to shoot?
I was brought in to shoot.
Chris, did you shoot?
I shot.
Chris, were you brought in to lead the shoot?
I was not brought in to lead the shoot.
Chris,
to my knowledge.
To your knowledge. Okay. But Chris, should you choose to say, I am not going to take the lead on the shoot, you had that right.
I did have that right.
Perfect. So, Chris, at this point in time, if you said, so Chris, at this point in time, if you said no, that you're not going to shoot, then did that not defeat the purpose of as to why you were there?
Don't try to confuse our listening audience, because they're smarter than that. He was brought in to shoot. His scope of service was to shoot. He shot. His scope of service did not include in that collaboration to lead the shoot. So therefore, he had all right to the person, I am not going to lead this shoot because it's not part of my scope of work. You cannot delegate that to me.
You have 50 seconds, Chris. Say something in 50 seconds.
I have a couple thoughts. So in this particular instance of the film shoot, part of why I did not refuse. So this has nothing to do with the delegation or collaboration, but I actually I knew the artist who was the client, and therefore I wanted the client still to get a great product, even though. So I was going to deal with that separately, and I did deal with that separately with the person who brought me on the shoot. So that being said, I think kind of where the difference is, and what I'm gathering from the two of you is, if somebody is truly leading the project, I'll break this down here. Who's in the meeting with the client? If it's a collaboration, then the collaborators, at least to some degree, are in those meetings or in some of the meetings that pertain to the overall achieving of the the goal at hand. If it is just a delegation, then one person is in the meeting and then comes back with that information and says, okay, here are what I want you to do, and you to do in order for us to all accomplish together, but I'm going to lead the charge here. Souvenirs.
Let's shimmy on into souvenirs.
My souvenir is based on a very small technicality. Xaulanda has won that debate. No, in all seriousness,
I'm not sure. So hold on, real quick. Let me go first. I'm gonna delegate myself to go first since we're on delegation. So, on our takeaways from this souvenirs on this trip is that what I have realized is that what needs to be clear is our scope of work. And that goes for, let's say, the past 3 episodes when we're talking about that communication, and definitely understanding the scope. So that way we know if we need to add change orders and a couple of different things. If you guys missed the episode, just backtrack a little bit. Go ahead, Mama.
Yeah, sorry. And understanding your role,
right.
And I think that's where some of the challenges as entrepreneurs, when we're working with clients, we get these speed bumps or these hiccups because we're coming from a point of reference that, okay, I might be collaborating on this project, but the client might be coming from the perspective that you're being delegated certain tasks. I remember most
Right.
recently it was more than one consultant on the project. And because there was not a clear scope of work from the client, I submitted my proposal with certain things. But as we started doing the work, I got the impression that the other consultant felt like it was their responsibility to do some of the things that the client asked me to do. And so, since the client couldn't clearly articulate, for the best interest of being efficient and maximizing resources on behalf of the client, I sat down with that consultant and I said, listen, we are all together going down this same highway. We are all on 405 or I-95 or whatever highway, but there are multiple lanes in this project. So I need to talk to you. Sure, I'm staying in my lane and that I understand your
Delegating.
don't collide, right? Because we want to keep this project going forward. And that's the difference between collaborating, even though the client wasn't clear on their delegating. Yeah.
There you go. I won't disagree with you on that. So I think that was a very good point. I'll give you that one notch, but as far as the argument goes, I definitely won the argument.
No. I don't know what you sipping while you tripping, but you starting to really trip.
Nah, I'm not doing this. Chris, what you gotta say? Break it, Chris. Chris, you the ref. Let's call it, Chris.
I mean, I guess just another way, similar to the meeting thing. Sean, you were saying staying in your lane. You know, I'm tripping too. I didn't have a good breakfast this morning, so it's hitting harder, you know. But again, staying in your lane is equivalent to driving together. We're driving our separate vehicles to get from point A to point B. That being said, if you were driving a bus, then everybody on the bus is getting delegated the task versus the collaboration of driving together in the lanes.
Damn, that got deep real quick. You could have just said that to start, Xaulanda. We wouldn't have had this argument for like 30 minutes.
So now you're accepting the fact that, you know, the words are very similar, but there are distinct differences between collaborating and delegating.
That's true. I accept it. And we were all driving. Just some people are on the bus and some of us are in the car.
Yes, and that's why I love this podcast, because we all have different perspectives and we can debate and have fun, but we learn at the end of the day. And what you've learned as a souvenir, Tristian, is Xaulanda was right.
Let's take in the view. All right.
Chris, did you change these windows?
So the quote I had planned, I'm going to read both of them, because there's one that I had planned and then there's one that totally just makes Xaulanda's point when, unfortunately, So the first one I was going to do was by businesswoman Jessica Jackley. She said, deciding what to do is as important as deciding what not to do. And I actually flipped that. It's deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. I want to quote it correctly. And that is the challenge of delegating, because we all want to do it ourselves, but obviously, as we mentioned, you know, would rather have 10% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape, is that you're getting more if you are collaborating and you're becoming more efficient by delegating. So the second quote is Sandra Day O'Connor, and this is about horse riding. So, the really expert riders of horses let the horse know immediately who was in control, but then guide the horse with loose reins and seldom use the spurs. And the reason I bring that is that essentially the expert rider, again, the horse is theoretically, and I'm not getting into any animal activism here or anything like that, but theoretically is subservient to the rider in a race. And therefore, the rider guides the decision with the clear roles and expectations of, this is what I need you to do. Here's where we're going. That's the finish line. And then once the horse knows what to do, then the rider can kind of back off a little bit and ease the reins and not use the spurs to punish, and rather encourage. So that's my little tidbits for delegation here. This was a great conversation, I think, in terms of actually defining what collaboration and delegation are. And our topic of the podcast, though, is whether or not to delegate, and when to do that. So real quick, when do you delegate and when do you not delegate? Now that we have somewhat of a cohesive understanding of what delegation is.
I think that's the biggest challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs, is because the business is their baby and they pretty much know how to do everything within their business. So what is it that you delegate? I think the things that you delegate are the things that can be done by other people. And the things you do not delegate are the things that only you can do. But through that delegation, you increase your capacity to be able to grow your business, sustain your business, take on more clients, So delegate the things that you're able to delegate, and the things that require your hands-on, then you hold on to that. But then you have to have a plan to train people, right? Because the bigger your business grows, there's more things that you're currently doing that you're eventually going to need to delegate. And that's where a lot of small businesses bring in consultants, right? Because they're typically higher level, educated, expertise people who can really take the reins and run with it.
Absolutely.
Right. And I know we had a lot of fun with it, with our little dispute. However, looking at it, I still view them as very similar things. But like Xaulanda is saying, is that the collaboration is more working with someone. So I want to say attain that goal. The delegation is when it is that we're asking someone to do something. So although we might bring in collaborators to deal with certain things, I don't want to say they're delegated that assignment. We've given them that assignment, but however they choose to delegate that assignment is completely up to them. So what I want us to keep in mind, that what's important is our end goals. A lot of us need to be just more goal-oriented in the sense, and not having the need to micromanage these projects, because between collaborating and delegating, what our end goal should be, to me, is the efficiency of completing the project. And that's just where it is at.
Yeah.
Love it. Here, let's do an informal wrap up here. So thank you, Trippers, for joining us today on this wonderful debate here on to delegate or not to delegate, and also how that compares to collaboration. Any final words from the X and the T?
Yes, click the like if you like what I said. Leave a comment if you disagree with Xaulanda, and that'll be perfectly fine. At this moment, we're just completely closing out the show. There's no time. I know Chris is not just sipping his whiskey over there. What are we going for, round two? This round two? Put more time on the clock, Chris. Put more time on.
Are you delegating this to me, Tristan, or are we collaborating? Right.
We need to cut his mic. It's time to wrap up the podcast.
Any final thoughts, Xaulanda?
No, this has been great. Really invigorating conversation. I've enjoyed it. So looking forward to more debates on word semantic.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Trippers. Hope you learned something today. Hope you found where your alignments are with Tristian and Xaulanda here. We know it can be contentious at times, but we love.
It's all out of love. Out of love.
And if you're refereeing with me, I hope you enjoyed your popcorn. I enjoyed the show as well, and we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for taking this trip with us. We hope you had a great time. Join us every Tuesday for another dose of X.T.C. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and visit us at theentrepreneursstrip.com for more entrepreneurship tips and trips. See you next time.